please inform us in the chat to everyone. We have a background technical team who is watching it, and they will get back to you and resolve it. Thank you very much. I request our company of Master Mariners of India's Master Chairman, Captain B.K. Jha, to kindly come and give the opening address. Captain B.K. Jha, sir.
Can you hear me?
Very well.
Yes, sir.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Respected Dr. Malini Shankar, IAS Vice Chancellor, IMU, Dr. Cleopatra, Doumbia Henry, President of the World Maritime University, Dr. Helen, Sampsan, Director of Seafarer International Research Center, UK, ladies and gentlemen, we all know about the effect of stress, yet we cannot avoid it knowingly or unknowingly. Stressors affecting seafarer working in engine room in a different manner from those involving the deck crew. I believe that each and every individual have their unique set of stressors which affect them. Categorizing them in a buckets is not a holistic way of looking at this problem, but definitely gives us a direction to understand it better. On a normal day, when this new normal or COVID normal, whatever you call it, was not the way of our life, a seafarer deals with multiple adverse conditions. The cause can vary from separation from family and friends, loneliness on board, concern over leaving loved one behind, lack of good quality sleep and poor diet, port inspection, changing crew every few months, working under time pressure, extreme temperatures, heavy seas for a long period, claustrophobia, etc. But adding on to the already existing challenges, COVID has brought a new set of challenges for our seafarers to battle. Biggest stress factor being the uncertainty. It's normal saying there is only one thing is certain in the shipping, that is uncertainty. Not knowing when will they be relieved and unable to help and protect their family at home is something which nobody can prepare them for. The unexpected delays in their daily port and cargo movement is add-on to this. It is sheer drive to fulfill their duty and hope to see their family soon after keeps them moving. Now I can give a scripted list of things to do and not to do during this pandemic. We do have multiple proposals from the local organization level, government, WHO, or even our seafarer fraternity. But I'm asking the question, is it enough? As responsible adults, we all know these and probably activity contribute and discuss about it on social media too. Every day, WhatsApp, Twitter feed will suggest such lengthy list, some true, some fake, and some are joke. Again, my question is it enough? Do you and being home with your family, struggling with the new normal or COVID normal, whatever you want to say, feel satisfied by just reading or debating on this? My simple answer is no. Then how can we expect a seafarer who is in high sea to feel comfortable in these challenging times? Daily I work with my fellow seafarers with battling these conditions, which has now started affecting their productivity. This is a loss of business, money, loss of our most valuable resources, that is the well-being of our officers. We need to look at this problem from 3 different angles and have a different approach to manage or relieve stress of a sailor on high sea. First, I will call it sailor himself. He can start some yoga or meditation, organization or company. And the third most important part is that seafarer fraternities, that is the institute, DG shipping, or bodies like CMMI. Being on board for a long tenure, 12 months, 15 months, or 18 months or more is not something new to the seafarers of my generation and before me. Having only letters and a phone call when at port to the family was our only means of communication. The norms have evolved for the current millennium generation: shorter tenure, continuous connectivity with your family at home, shorter voyage, period from one port to another, thanks to the advanced technology and faster ships. But it is unfortunate that the COVID, this opportunity has robbed of them. They are now forced to work the way we used to work. I want to let them know that we understand their problem. We have worked through it to build this better way of working for them. Seeing the old ways being reinforced is not something that makes us happy, but yes, it does gives us an opportunity to help you better. We have been better. We have been there. We can help you to survive this. Every master attending webinar here can enrich us with how they were self-motivated and what they did on board to fulfill their duty better. Now let's hear from experts about the cause and cure both, and effect of stress and solution. Thank you. Thank you very much. Costa, you can take over.
Thank you, Captain Jha. I have a pleasant task to perform. I am going to introduce you today to Dr. Malini Shankar. Now, who doesn't know Dr. Malini Shankar? As a former Director General of Shipping, she has initiated a lot of changes in the shipping industry, and today we can see the effect of those changes. She holds a master's degree in development management from the Asian Institute of Management, Philippines. She has also got a master's degree in chemistry from Mount Holyoke College, USA. She did her professional mid-career training She did her professional mid-career training at the Institut International d'Administration Publique in Paris, France, where she was awarded a diploma in international economics. She was nominated by the Government of India for training programs at Howard University and at the University of California at Berkeley. So with that, friends, may I present to you Dr. Malini Shankar, IAS, the Vice Chancellor of the prestigious Indian Maritime University.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Okay. It is my pleasure indeed to be amidst you today and to open the web seminar on a very important topic organized by the CMMI, which is Understanding Seafarers' Stress. At the outset, let me say what a pleasure it is to share this virtual dais with Dr. Cleopatra and with Dr. Helen Sampsan. A pleasure to be with you on the same virtual page, ma'am. We all know that we live in completely unprecedented times. This is something even the previous generation, our parents' generation, hasn't seen. It's a very unsettling time in living memory. It's a war with something that you cannot see, something that is very microscopic, which is invisible. And every section of society seems to face challenges and have its own set of travails. In the best of times, dear friends, seafaring is not an easy job. It is a very, very demanding profession, and I don't need to spell out. Captain Jha has already said what are the challenges that a seafarer faces when he sets out on his profession at sea. But having said that, let me also spread the canvas vast and say there are several sections of society which are presently facing travails. The seafarer is actually it's a constant challenge for the seafarer. Every time he goes out to sea, pandemic or no pandemic, it is uncertainty. It's filled with uncertainties and challenges. But we have certain sections of society that have not seen such challenges and are actually having to face up to them. One such section is the police force. The police force is so exhausted in a country like India today. In a place like Mumbai, we have lost 100 policemen, including 4 or 5 police officers to COVID. They're young and old. It's so exhausted that they cannot, it's a challenge to even do the containment zones, put the regulations in place. All of us would agree there is another set of professionals who are actually trying their level best to contribute to the society, but facing equally big challenges. This is the medical profession and the professions that are associated with the medical field. So let us also see the perspective that yes, seafarers have a very challenging time, but they are not alone. There are others who are also facing these times. Given these challenges, I remember when the lockdown started in India, one of the key things was we have to keep the trade going, we have to keep the ships sailing, and the crew is not able to sign off or sign on. And I know there was a frenzied activity in the month of March, April, phone calls going across the country to high and low. And I think the Director General of Shipping and his team has done a yeoman job in putting protocols in place to ensure initially that the crew change could take place for the Indians. And I remember I was speaking to port authorities and they said, yes, we can allow people to go, leave the port, but we can't allow people to get off. And there you are trying to negotiate with them saying, no, for every person who goes, there has to be a person who leaves the ship. You can't put everybody on board and send them away into the sea. So, I mean, there were practical issues, I think, but they've done a fantastic job of coordinating across ministries and departments, across regions, across state governments, and not only having protocol in place for a crew change for Indians, but also in due course crew change for the foreign seafarers also. And the last one, I knew that Dubai was the hub for changes given the constraints in air travel, given the constraints in other types of travel. So it's a yeoman job which has been done. They've also stepped in to talk to the Ministry of External Affairs to ensure that the passports of seafarers who are at sea, if it expires, that they are not totally at sea, that their passports will be deemed to have been extended. That required a lot of coordination across ministries in Delhi. They've extended the validity of the COC. So a lot of things have been put in place so that already the seafarers are under distress, but these things will at least ensure that there is some alleviation and mitigation of this distress by enabling the seafarer to sign on, sign off, to go on a job that he has a contract for, to earn his or her livelihood, to come back home to meet his or her family, etc. The one thing I remember is to say this pandemic has put all of us in the same boat. And a friend corrected me and said, we are all in the same storm, but not in the same boat. And I think that hits the nail on the head, saying each one of us, whether it's doctors, policemen, the government servants who are working full time, the essential service workers, the person who supplies water, the solid waste management staff, each of us is facing our challenges. We are having same storm, but different boats. And that goes the same for the seafarers. Each one of them will be in the same storm, but necessarily not in the same boat, depending on their family support, depending on their inner mental strength, depending on their physical capability, depending on the financial needs. It's going to be very, very different for each of the seafarer. So I think for each of the stakeholders in the shipping industry, whether it is the training institutes, whether it is the associations and the authorities, for us to meet the challenge and see in what way we can extend a helping hand so that the life of the seafarer becomes easier in these troubled times. And to end, I will say at the organizational level, whether it is a university, whether it is an MTI, whether it's an association, whether it's an authority, there seems to be a need to raise the sensitization level across the board. When I say this, I'm coming with a practical experience of, we were talking about crew changes. When I spoke to one or two states, some of them did not know that the seafarers have a special challenge. So it's over a period of time, they said, oh, but I didn't realize that. I thought this was just a typical e-pass, electronic pass that's required to get in and get out. We never realized that there is a bigger challenge waiting. So I think there has to be a constant effort to sensitize the people who we have to interact with and not leave it till an emergent situation. Similarly, associations, I think associations have been doing a fantastic job of talking about stress management and distress management among seafarers, because it's a constant presence. It's there at the back of the mind every time. At the personal level, I think we need to, that's where I say even the MTIs are responsible. We live in today's world where we have more and more creature comforts actually. Compared to the previous generation, compared to 2 decades ago, I think every one of us is better off with creature comforts. But then what happens when your creature comfort psychologically goes up is your mental strength seems to come down. And this is something that researchers observe across the board, especially with students. I mean, we struggled. When we went to school, we struggled. We did not have equipment. We did not have the wherewithal, but we struggled to learn. There are people who sit under a street lamp and, did their classes. That's not the case today, except for a few people, except for a minority. But then as these creature comforts go up, the physical comforts go up, the mental strength seems to come down. And I think this has to start from the family. It has to start from the educational and training institutions to give them the mental strength, to give them to impart to them the importance of being mentally strong from within. I think many land jobs can be done with a lower level of mental strength, but no sea job, in my opinion, can be done with a lower level of mental strength. So maybe we should actually improve, look at improving or look at methods by which we improve the mental strength of the seafarer even as they enter the profession, and not, of course, there are challenges when you go at sea. The mental strength that you are prepared for as a student or as a cadet or as a entry level will not be the same later on. But I think it should be a constant effort on the part of all of us to see how this mental strength can be improved across the sections of society, especially for seafarers. With these words, I would like to thank the CMMI for having given me the opportunity to share my thoughts and to open this very important web seminar. Wish you very well. And as Dr. Cleopatra said, I hope the discussions and deliberations can lead to something that can be followed up in terms of bettering the situation tomorrow compared to today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the very enlightening talk. You spoke about the mental strength. The mental strength at the entry level and at the profession, it should be a continuous process. And rightly said, I see 3 powerful women today at a very prestigious position. And I'm sure with the WMU and IMU going to have a very long-standing relation. And thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I look forward. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to introduce Dr. Cleopatra Doumbia Henry, the president of WMU. Dr. Cleopatra Doumbia Henry joined World Maritime University as president in 2015. Prior to joining WMU, she served as the director of the International Labour Standards Department of the International Labour Office, ILO, in Geneva, Switzerland. While at the ILO, she was responsible for developing ILO Maritime Labour Convention 2006 and remained responsible for it until she joined WMU. She had led the ILO participation in a number of IMO/ILO interagency collaborations, including on fair treatment of seafarers, liability and compensation regarding claims for deaths, personal injury, and abandonment of seafarers. The welfare of seafarers is very core to her heart. She holds a master and a doctorate in international law from the University of Geneva, Switzerland. Dr. Doumbia Henry has dual Dominican and Swiss nationality and has published extensively on a wide range of international laws subjects, including on international labor standards and trade, the Maritime Labor Convention 2006, the Seafarers Identity Documents Convention 2003, and the carriage of dangerous goods by sea. She is married, she has 2 boys, and speaks fluently in 3 languages: English, French, and Spanish. Dr. Cleopatra Doumbia Henry, we are proud to have you with us, and the floor is to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much to the CMMI for inviting me to be part of your webinar today. Let me begin by thanking the Vice Chancellor himself, Dr. Malini Shankar of the Indian Maritime University, who is also a member of the Board of Governors of the WMU. Captain Ja, Master Mariner for CMMI. I also wanted to acknowledge the presence of Captain Basin, Secretary General, the company of Master Mariners of India, Dr. Helen Sampsan, the Director of the Seafarers International Research Center. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first begin by congratulating the company of Master Mariners of India for the organization of this important webinar on what I consider to be a very important issue. One, as certainly as you have just said, based on my background, as very close to my heart, seafarers' welfare. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the organizers for the invitation. I deem it a privilege and an honor to address the participants in this Zoom. I have recently shared some of my thoughts in other fora, including a statement that I made to mark the Day of the Seafarer and an interview that I gave on the subject. I wish to reiterate to this audience some of these elements. The seafarers' landscape is today indeed a bleak one. The well-being of seafarers in its totality is currently at stake. While many may be of the opinion that this state of affairs is a recent development resulting from COVID-19, I am sure all of us here attending this webinar know very well that sadly the pandemic has only served to highlight an ongoing problem with historical antecedents. The consideration of seafarers and their well-being cannot be said to have ever been at an optimal level on the global stage. This statement does not have to be qualified by the fact that there are indeed notable exceptions. And I want to identify some of these exceptions. Exceptions in terms of how governments have come on board, shipping companies, non-governmental organizations, many of whom are going.
And I want to thank the
Okay.
organizers.
Yeah,
I'm
there's some,
very happy.
Please mute. Okay, please go ahead.
I was referring to the making a statement that does have to be qualified by the fact that there are indeed many exceptions. Governments, some of the governments, shipping companies, non-governmental organizations who are in fact going well beyond the average performance of the global community. However, COVID-19, this pandemic, with its consequential economic and social impacts, has certainly exacerbated and highlighted long-standing seafarer welfare challenges and has had a significant, if not a disproportionate effect on seafarers on many fronts. In particular, seafarer health, both their mental and their physical well-being, has been severely compromised by the lack of global will and the capacity to ensure that the needs of seafarers, recognized under international law, that these needs are met. Many countries still do not provide seafarers with medical care ashore. And in some cases, it remains particularly difficult for them to get access to medical supplies. This is, in my view, and I'm sure you will all share that, is unacceptable, being counter to basic human rights, as well as to the letter and the spirit of the international legal instruments that exist, both adopted by IMO and by the ILO, and to which many of these countries are bound. The mistreatment of seafarers needs to be strongly condemned by all, and that action must be taken to remedy the situation. In addition to this direct attack on their human rights, with respect to health, seafarers have been denied the right to repatriation, to travel restrictions that have been put in place by many countries. In some of these cases, this has dramatically compounded. It has been compounded by seafarers having to stay on board already well beyond their contractual terms and far in excess of the stipulated terms under international law, sometimes beyond 1 year. Quite a number of seafarers exceed that period, and we all know that. As a result, there is evidence to show that seafarers' mental health and their well-being are being compromised, particularly in a situation where it is natural to want to be with or near family and loved ones, and that fatigue levels are rising significantly and endangering the shipping operations in general. These issues must be addressed, and we expect them to continue to be addressed as a matter of urgency. The economic crisis that COVID-19 has precipitated is only aggravating these very serious issues and increasing the vulnerability of our seafarers. It is indeed disturbing to learn that many of them do not have access to the type of social protection schemes in the event that they lose their jobs. I have devoted many of my years working at the ILO to address these issues, and I think it is time to enhance particularly the social security coverage for our seafarers. Many of them today don't have social security coverage. I must therefore stress that in actual fact, irrespective of their importance to human society, the basic norms of human rights, the right to medical care, and indeed the right to social security, require that seafarers be treated more humanly across the board. The world must, however, further recognize seafarers' importance and reflect this recognition in appropriate action. The shipping industry is one of the most critical industries to humanity's global well-being. We all depend on it, even if we do not even realize it. Those of us in shipping know that. Water transport and those who make it possible have always been essential, especially in these times when factories and market systems in one jurisdiction or another are shut. They are shut down, or they are struggling to operate in lockdown situations. It is even more imperative that the cogwheels of shipping remain optimally operational at these challenging times. From medical supplies to basic essential needs, transporting goods across the globe requires that the lifeblood of world trade and the human and well-being that we all want to preserve, that transporting goods are absolutely indispensable and necessary and will remain so into the future. The essential role, therefore, of seafarers in this context continues to be important, and in these challenging times may be said to have become even more essential. I certainly want to acknowledge, as intimated earlier, that there are organizations in the industry that exceptionally both articulate clear and laudable positions regarding seafarers' welfare and who act on those statements. I've been very pleased, for example, to see the positive reaction of most of the industry stakeholders to the seafarer welfare issues presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. They have come together and they have exercised previously unseen pressure on countries to relieve the seafarers' plight while looking for innovative solutions in order to provide smooth, safe repatriation outlets and outcomes and mechanisms for our seafarers. These actions have to be applauded and their example held up for all of the industry to emulate. However, the problems have not been resolved. On the contrary, we see them getting worse rather than getting better. Efforts have to be intensified at all levels in order to ensure that just a minute.
Some problem, ma'am?
Yes, I just have a little problem. Just a minute. So I've just gotten myself back to where I am. So I do acknowledge, as I intimated earlier, that there are organizations in the industry that exceptionally both articulate and have laudable positions concerning seafarer welfare and who act on those statements. And I have been very pleased to see the positive reaction of most of the industry stakeholders to seafarer welfare issues as they're presented by this pandemic. They have therefore come together, they have exercised previously unseen pressure on governments to relieve the plight of seafarers while looking for innovative solutions in order to provide for a smooth and safe repatriation modalities for these seafarers. They have to be applauded and their example have to be held up so that all of the industry can emulate. However, problems have not yet been resolved. On the contrary, in some countries and in some areas, they're getting worse. Efforts therefore need to be intensified at all levels, and in particular, states have to intensify their actions relating to the recognition that seafarers as indicated by the IMO Secretary General are key workers. The industry, stakeholders such as ship owners, managers, and operators also need to put the well-being of their own crew very high on their agendas. Mental and psychosocial support and interventions are welcomed, but the key point remains that seafarers need to go home after completion of their contractual terms at sea in accordance with international legal instruments, and in particular, the MLC 2006. This convention addresses three matters which are of great care, and these provide for innovative solutions in order to ensure that seafarers enjoy social security benefits in their countries of residence. While many countries are struggling to implement these provisions, industry stakeholders can give a definite push in this particular direction. As intimated previously, on the 25th of June, I made a statement to mark Seafarers' Day, in which I quoted this day as unique, as instituted in 2011, and I recognize, and I quote in that statement, the invaluable contribution that seafarers make to international trade and the world economy, often at their own personal cost and that of their families. The theme this year, Seafarers are Key Workers, has to be put into practice. And it is indeed extremely important that this theme, which calls for action and not just for platitudes. The intention behind this theme is to accelerate the creation of awareness in the global population, and in particular in key decision-making fora, of the essential role that seafarers play in the global supply chain. Ironically, as the world's dependence on seafarers has increased, both the pandemic and the global community has been particularly hard hit, and in many cases, unfairly or sometimes in a way which amounts to outright abuse. At the same time, I issued the statement, and still today, seafarers' occupational safety and health are seriously compromised, and the future does not necessarily look that good. Despite some easing of lockdowns, air travel has not been fully restored, while quarantines are still required in many countries. With the evidence of the so-called second wave of COVID-19, in some jurisdictions, things may not change that quickly. Hence, repatriation and crew changeovers cannot take place with the speed that is required within an industry that moves around 150,000 seafarers per month. Remarkably, medical care continues to be an issue, and the fragile, ethical, and contractual compromises that sustain continuous work are rapidly deteriorating as the months pass by. The whole UN family and other governmental and non-governmental organizations, as well as our social partners, have mobilized significant resources to support seafarers. Yet the challenges continue. It can be emphatically stated that it is time now, that society in general, we as citizens, recognize the value of our seafarers, not just as human beings, but as people whom we should specially treat with the dignity that they deserve, as fellow workers who have not abandoned their jobs for our sake, and as key workers who provide an essential and invaluable service, keeping our societies and our economies moving. As WMU, we acknowledge the sincere efforts of those maritime professionals, many of whom are alumni of the university, others are partners of the university, and they are working tirelessly to alleviate the challenges and the crises precipitated by COVID-19 and other, of course, pre-existing drivers. To honor these seafarers, The university, in collaboration with the ITF Trust, has made publicly available a number of online lectures discussing seafarers' rights. And as part of our professional development program on maritime welfare, we make available these lectures in order to provide an excellent overview of the international legal framework that obliges countries to respect seafarers' dignity and to provide them with a safe working environment, including, importantly, facilitation of their repatriation. As the IMO Apex Educational Institution, WMU offers Masters of Science degrees in Maritime Affairs with specializations covering, among other things, all core issues related to maritime occupational health and safety. However, some years ago, WMU identified a gap in the broad maritime community regarding the provision of education and training for personnel engaged in supporting seafarers. This is the reason why the professional development course on maritime welfare, we call MARIWELL, was conceived by the university as a fully fledged online course to fill this gap and enhance the knowledge and skills of those working with seafarers. Thanks to the ITF Trust that funded this very important course. It was possible for WMU personnel to set up the course and to invite leading experts in the sector to deliver the lectures. The course is comprehensive. It addresses a variety of issues that are presented in 3 modules. The first module deals with international interagency regulation and collaboration relating to seafarers, offering a clear overview of all the core international non-governmental organizations involved in producing, implementing, and enforcing the regulations that affect seafarers' work. Both the ILO and myself personally have lectured in this module. The second module focuses on the psychosocial and the occupational health and safety issues relating to seafarers. Lectures on issues such as fatigue, physical and mental health, bullying and harassment are discussed from a medical and a psychosocial perspective and provides core information to establish and develop supportive preventive programs on board. The last module in that program deals with crew and resource management and land-based welfare relating to seafarers and addresses the organizational aspects of occupational safety and health matters. I therefore invite participants to this webinar to have a look at the online lectures, take advantage of them in order to enhance the knowledge about seafarers and the key issues affecting them, and to join the global action to make things better. I wish to take the opportunity to express for myself and on behalf of the World Maritime University our deepest appreciation to all seafarers on this platform who are here with us today, and to all the others. In particular, I'd like to recognize the role of shipmasters who carry the administrative, the legal and human resource management burdens that result from keeping a crew on board and keeping them safe in such times. Your resilience, their good faith, and their steadfast competence are exemplary, and they deserve much better than they are getting today. I assure you that the World Maritime University will continue to work to create the awareness of the positives of this important career, the career that so many have chosen, as well as the actions that are needed to combat and to alleviate the negative treatment that is often meted out to our world seafarers. We at WMU will continue to collaborate and with all the willing stakeholders and partners for a better system of governance and the fair treatment of all workers, and in particular of seafarers. I look forward to a time when to be a seafarer is not to consign oneself to what one can only term as industrial abuse, contrary to international law, whether in respect of workload, rest hours, repatriation, or wages or employment agreements, we have to take action. I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I am sure that Professor Helen Sampsan will be able to address a number of other issues that I may not have touched upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cleopatra Doumbia. A very motivating address. You spoke about the medical care for the seafarers. You spoke about the maritime health and safety, land-based welfare. And in the end, you covered it up by saying WMU will create a positiveness of the sea carrier. WMU will work toward the better, fair treatment of seafarers. Madam President, we are grateful to you for your encouraging words. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I now request Dr. Captain Suresh Bhardwaj, our Company of Master Mariners Warden and the Principal of Master Maritime Academy in Chennai. He'll be taking over this session and doing an interactive session with Dr. Helen. Dr. Bhardwaj, a well-learned person, well-known in India for his thesis and various presentations that he keeps doing and motivating us. Dr. Bhardwaj, please, sir.
Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you very much. Thank you for this very humbling opportunity. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Helen Sampsan comes from Seafarers International Research Center, and this is located in Cardiff University in UK, in the Department of School of Social Sciences. And this was established for conducting research on the seafarers. This center has particular emphasis on the issues of occupational health and safety. Ladies and gentlemen, it has a very sought after fellowship program for postgraduates and PhDs, which is fully supported by the Nippon Foundation. And their alumni are very well placed. They're contributing immensely to this industry. The research programs of the center are supported by some very prominent organizations like the Lloyd's Register, the TK Foundation, European Union Commission, IMO, ILO, ITF, MCA, EMSA, and Professor Dr. Helen Sampsan here. She heads the center as its director since 2003. She has studied the shipping industry and seafarers since 1999, and she has herself undertaken research voyages on 10 different types of ships: tankers, bulk carriers, containers, reefers. So all this has provided a very strong foundation for her work with some international policymakers, regulators, employers, charities, and even trade unions. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2014, she won the British Sociological Association BBC Prize for Ethnography for a book, International Seafarers and Transnationalism in the 21st Century. Her current research projects include study on the mental well-being of seafarers, which is funded totally by the Institution of Occupational Health and Safety. She also heads the Lloyd's Register Foundation funded program, which is translating research into action in the shipping industry. And also there is a UK Economic Social Research Council study on the seafarers' faith, which has so much to do with well-being. And to top it all, currently Professor Helen Sampsan, she's serving as the commissioner on the UK government's commission into the future maritime training and skills to inform the UK government's post-Brexit policy. So welcome, Professor Helen. And as you preferred, more of an interactive session rather than what you call as the deathly PowerPoint. Yes, we'll proceed accordingly. So, Professor Helen, notwithstanding the stress by the COVID, which is very comprehensively covered by Madam President of the World Maritime University, excellently covered. Going slightly beyond that, today, there is a serious concern with the mental health, even suicides happening at sea. And I'm told this is more generally with seafarers' stress as a major issue. And the response, Professor Helen, the industry seems to be coming up with is to engage psychologists for importing resilience programs to the seafarers. The stress. Would it not be better? I would think some simple things like even standardization of equipment. Or like Madam President talked about the psychosocial needs of the worker relationship, like trust. Now, these are more of learning issues for the people ashore, who I think involuntarily or even ignorantly, they tend to create the stress, which in turn makes a perfectly competent and a perfectly experienced seafarer to err and deviate from his expected performance. So madam, are we really missing the point totally? Or is it conveniently? Professor Helen?
Thank you very much, Captain Madroj, for your very kind introduction. And thank you to everybody involved in this seminar for inviting me to come along and join with you to discuss these very important issues. So you asked me, is it the industry is missing? Resilience training programs that have been introduced to make another parallel that's very contemporary. We're all very concerned about the coronavirus pandemic. And we know that face coverings, as they like to call them in the UK now, face masks, may help us in preventing the transmission of this deadly virus. But we also know that they do not address the fundamental cause of the problem, which is the virus itself, obviously. So I see the remedial training, the resilience training, as very similar in the sense that it may be helpful to seafarers, who in fact are a very resilient population. It was mentioned earlier that seafarers do require a great deal of resilience ordinarily to be at sea. So I consider them to be pretty mentally resilient already, but it may be that further resilience training certainly does no harm and may do some good. So I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to the measures per se. But at the Seafarers International Research Centre, we have spent many, many years trying to actually look more, less at the sticking plaster and more at the fundamental causes of stress and how those can be addressed. And we've looked, for example, at accommodation design, issues like vibration and noise in cabins. We've looked at recreational facilities, ways in which seafarers can de-stress, can recuperate from the stresses of daily life. Things that we can do easily when we're ashore at home by going for a walk in the park, but seafarers can't do. If you like a walk in the park, that is, maybe people have other ways, but mostly we have access to the things ashore that can help us to recover from the stresses of daily life. And increasingly, we see that seafarers are having those things removed from them, the ability to socialize and the ability to take part in group sport activities, for example. These things with space limitations, changes in company policies to do with safety are being reduced at sea. But recently, we also looked specifically at the interactions between seafarers and shore-based personnel, both in offices, their own offices, the people who are interacting with them daily about operations at sea, and also the interactions they have with port personnel. And actually, in line with some of the comments that I noticed coming up in the chat, Today we're trying to go beyond simply the production of research reports that may or may not be acted upon, but may collect dust on somebody's shelves. We hope not, but sometimes that happens, I believe. So we're trying to do more to actually provide some support for different elements within the industry so that these issues can be addressed. And one of the things that we produced after we completed the study of ship-shore interaction was an animation which is aimed not at seafarers. I must stress this is obviously not aimed at seafarers. This is aimed at shore personnel in seafarers organizations, particularly those kinds of personnel who may never have been to sea and don't really have. We know that that's more often the case now. There are more people working in ship operations ashore who don't actually have sea experience, and that was identified in our research as a real significant problem by seafarers. So these are very simple things that we identified in the research that shore personnel could avoid doing, which they quite often do, that cause seafarers stress. We identified some very simple things that could be addressed, and we decided to make a short animation that they can use for training purposes with shore personnel to address these things. And I believe, Captain Bajwaj, that you have access to the animation and that you're going to be able to show it to us all. It's quite short, it lasts about 6 minutes, I believe.
Yes, I from your website, I have managed to access this, and I will try and show this.
It's Monday morning. Daisy and Susie May are making their way to the office. It's a beautiful day, and the birds are singing in the trees. They're having a good laugh and catching up about what they did at the weekend. Daisy's boyfriend proposed, and they excitedly discuss plans for the wedding. Susie May has discovered a fantastic new restaurant in town and suggests Daisy might use it for the reception. As they go into their office, they part company, reminding each other that today is their favorite day, Donut Day, because their manager always brings a treat in for everyone to kickstart the week. They head to their computers for work. By midday, Susie May is concerned about the situation of a chief engineer, Mauro, on board a vessel in Central America. His scheduled reliever has been admitted to hospital, and she can't find a replacement. She feels really sorry for Mauro, as he is going to miss his daughter's wedding. The ship's captain has written her several emails to ask for a relief to be found urgently. Despite struggling to find cover, she hasn't been able to find anyone, and she has been trying hard again all morning. On board Mauro's ship, the captain is completing a stressful pilotage of the Panama Canal. He has been on the bridge for hours and is becoming tired. The vessel is late for its next port due to delays at the last terminal, and the charterer has been constantly calling the captain and pressuring him for updates on progress. Even though he's in a hurry, the captain feels that the pilot is pressing the vessel too hard, entering locks too fast, and slowing too quickly, making both the captain and chief engineer anxious about the strain on the engine. In this situation, the captain has limited influence and is becoming more stressed. The ship should have arrived in their next port a week ago, and the chief engineer should have already gone home. A week later than planned, the crew still have another day to go before berthing. The chief engineer has been told that his reliever has gone into hospital, and there is nobody else available to take over from him. The next port is Manzanillo, and after that, the ship will cross the Atlantic to Spain. Mauro will leave the ship 3 weeks after he was originally due to go home. He is furious and pacing up and down, because he will now definitely miss his daughter's wedding. He has had several family rows, as his wife and daughter say they knew this would happen and blame him despite the fact they know it's not in his hands. He pleads with the captain to try and sort it out. The charterer keeps pressuring the captain to make up the delays. And to top it all, the chief cook has burnt his arm, leaving the messman doing most of the cooking. All the crew are complaining that they can't eat the food, but there is nothing the captain can do. Anchored outside Manzanillo, a call comes to the bridge in the middle of the night. It is put through to the captain's cabin. The phone wakes him up, and he answers groggily. It's Susie May from the office. She's surprised to hear him like that, and doesn't realize that it's the middle of the night for him. Susie May explains the situation with the chief engineer, and the captain says he understands. She then takes the opportunity to ask him to send an email confirming the ship's estimated time of berthing, as she is organizing for other crew members to join in the next port. The captain explains that he has already sent the information to Daisy, and to the superintendent too, but he will be happy to send it again. The call ends politely. The captain goes to his computer to resend the email. He spends some time searching for the original message to forward.
Yes.
Feel that with this audience of esteemed,
and yet it's not, the expectations are still there, and we can't fulfill them. It's beyond our means now. If they found out we have given, in a lot of cases they'll be sacked. And also on the other hand, if something untoward happens because we refuse to give gifts, again there's a good likelihood that they will be sacked, because the financial repercussions can be really bad for the company.
The blame for any sort of incident comes back to the ship. Even though perhaps it was the tugboat captain that decided to cause these problems, the ship employs the tug, and so ultimately the blame falls back onto the ship and then the officers and crew on board.
We were asked for certain gifts and the master refused, citing the no bribery policy. And of course he was warned by the agent, saying that no, here you have to, it's a matter of practice, and certain people get really angry, and we said that we can't, it's not in our powers to do so anymore. And the next thing we know, there was some problem with our provisions, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come.
To be honest,
we waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were short of food, and the provisions didn't come. We waited till the last day of sailing and there's still no provisions, and after it was a 3-month voyage, so by then we were
These situations are unpleasant for seafarers and disrupt good relationships between ship and shore staff, but there are worse situations which they face as well.
Seafarers have told us of the theft of equipment from ships, for example, the brass fittings from fire hoses. Not only does the removal of such items compromise seafarers' lives in the event of an emergency, it also places their ship at a risk of detention by port state control authorities. Following such events, senior officers may lose their jobs and may never succeed in regaining employment.
There are certain ports that we go to that within our sort of hazard analysis of the ports, we've identified that pilfering and sort of theft is quite high. So before we arrive in these ports, we go around the ship where stevedores and certain other people that we allow on board are walking around. We remove all of those brass fittings and lock them away in a bonded store so they can't be taken away from the ship. It makes you nervous and worried, and you have to come up with certain contingency plans in the event that it happen, there should be a fire or whatever, to know that certain people have to divert from what would be their normal duties in an emergency to go and reattach, sort of reassemble certain safety critical equipment before we're able to get on and deal with the fire or whatever hazard has happened that we have to deal with. Yes, I've experienced numerous fires, normally at least once a contract, so once every 4 months, at varying degrees of severity. Of course, it's a very stressful time. Although we're trained to deal with fires, we're by no means professional firefighters. So having safety critical equipment taken away from you because of pilfering sort of just leads to that extra stress level. Think back to when I've experienced this sort of disassembling equipment. If that had been the case when we had these sort of large fires on board, I mean, it's difficult to contemplate what the consequences could have been.
Another serious issue which our research uncovered was financial extortion. We heard from seafarers about occasions when corrupt officials threatened to detain vessels unless cash was paid to them. This places seafarers in a terrible position as their companies are likely to hold them responsible for these situations. Rather than face dismissal, we came across some examples where seafarers actually met such demands with their own cash. Such was the fear of losing their jobs.
At this given point, we didn't have the necessary bonds that they wanted. So we said, we're really sorry, and we gave a lower grade one that we had because they expect the finest quality. And the pilot just walked out of the bridge wing and he just went, "Master, what is this, a joke to you?" And we were like really shocked. And finally he just refused, and we had to get through. We have our jobs to keep, we have deadlines to maintain. The master actually had to pay 500 about from his pocket. To be honest, it's not his requirement to pay off someone to take a vessel from one point to the other, where it's not getting reimbursed, and that pressure and that intimidation should not be given to anyone. But there are points when you come into the port, the master literally walks with the wallet in the pocket so that he can just pay off and just keep the people happy. But I don't think that's quite right, because he's a person with a family, he's a person with children. He doesn't need to go through that intimidation and pressure from third parties.
Yes, I think when you hear it from the seafarers themselves, then you realize the gravity of these situations, Professor Helen.
Yes, that's certainly what we feel, and we felt it was important to try to make a film that allowed seafarers that voice to speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping that this will be viewed extensively. Again, it's a free resource, and we hope that, that amongst the audience that you have today, if there's anybody who knows where this this film could be shown, there's, as I say, another section on bunker supply fraud as well, which is extremely important. Then they can download the film directly. Actually, with the animation, they need to get in touch with us. We'll send them the proper copy, because on the website is only the preview version for the animation. But for the port films, for the port corruption film, that's available online. And actually, we've had it. We've had what do you call it when you put a translation, captions. We've put captions in 6 different languages, so that it's possible for this film to be used in various parts of the world where other languages such as Spanish, Portuguese, French, Arabic, Chinese are spoken rather than English, the first language. So yes, we welcome anybody who wishes to use the video, downloading one of the versions in whatever language they prefer from the website, the CERC website. I don't know if you have the facility to put the CERC website details somewhere on your website or something so that people can easily find it if they want to do that, but that would be great. I also thought that I might mention, if you don't mind, that that we've written about these issues also for an industry audience, but also in more academic ways, and information about the papers that we've published in these areas is also on our website. So I know amongst your audience there will be some people who are not interested at all in more academic presentation of these things, and others who are extremely interested. And so either way, they're free to go on our website, and we list all our publications there. And where it's possible, we link interested members of the public either to the homepage of the journal, or if the article is freely available by the publishers, then actually to the published version. So I hope people.
And that is empirical research. Awesome, absolutely. Well, Professor Helen, I think the audience, I'm sure, have got many questions as well. And we have our Secretary General who has been monitoring these questions. And shall we then invite him to take over the proceedings of Q&A? Captain Basin?
Why not?
Thank you, Dr. Helen. Thank you, Dr. Bhardwaj. Excellent interactive session. I'm going through the chat. Mainly, I find many comments, very few questions, but there are a few, and I've noted down a few things, so I'll go straight to it. Just give me a second, please. There's a question from Mr. Abdul Ghani Sarang. He is the Secretary General of NUSI, National Union of Seafarers Institute, affiliated to ITF. One second, please. He says there have been, despite the stakeholder efforts in repatriation, it's a big challenge today. We know, I mean, India is one of the countries which have allowed the crew reliefs and taken a lead world over. But still, the seafarers have to swallow the bitter pill, because all over it is still not allowed in the world. He's just asking what kind of solution or guidance you can give them.
Unfortunately, this is a very difficult problem, because it's really not within the shipping industry. It's certainly not within my power to do anything about this, or the problem would have been solved a long time ago. But it's also not within the shipping industry's power, because one thing I think that's really interesting about this crisis is it's highlighted one way in which the seafarer's job is completely different to any of ours ashore. And that is that once a seafarer is on board a ship, it is almost impossible for them to leave the vessel without permission of the various authorities. So, of course, there are possibilities for doing so illegally, but they don't lead to very good consequences for the seafarers or for anybody involved. But leaving those aside, I'm sure this parts of the world. So it doesn't just depend on whether or not you're in the middle of the ocean, but it also depends on whether the state where your vessel is calling allows you to leave from the vessel. And if they say you can't, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And I've heard of situations where seafarers have been expecting to be relieved. The company has expected, because permission has been granted, as the ship approached the port, they're expecting to be able to leave the vessel. And then suddenly, because things have moved on and changed with the coronavirus crisis, the port is suddenly once again closed to those kinds of repatriations. So it's an enormous problem. Of course, many things are being done by stakeholders within the industry to try to make governments more aware of the situation. But it's a problem that has so many different dimensions to it. Even if seafarers are allowed to leave their vessel, it may be that there are then no flights to take them home. They may get caught halfway, in their journey because they've had to take a flight that involves changing a plane, and then suddenly once they get back to their home country at their own cost. So I've heard that seafarers are having to put themselves up in hotels in capital cities for 2 weeks before they can go home again. Vessel. That every time there's a delay, even though you know very well there's likely to be some kind of delay with every departure, every time there's a delay, it is nearly intolerable. And I hope very much that things can be done to move this situation along in the right direction. Unfortunately, we just don't really have control of the virus, even ashore, do we? So, here in the UK, things are changing daily. Yesterday, at about 9 o'clock, the government announced that people in certain cities in the country wouldn't be able to go out and socialize. And this has made family gatherings. Imagine all the investment in food and so on, and, a very short notice. So we see all over the world that the coronavirus picture changes seemingly quite quickly, and governments respond quite quickly. And that also affects, unfortunately, what happens in ports and what happens with travel. And seafarers are bearing the brunt of that, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Dr. Helen. There's a question from Mr. Saldana. He says the clash of cultures, port rotations means that the seafarers cannot afford to stay back and dispute. He says it means that the sign off and immigration would deport. And there's a question after that. Can ILO and other seafarer welfare bodies arrange for legal representation of any seafarer? I'm not so sure to whom I should address this question. But this,
I think you know that the person you should address that question really is probably Dr. Doumbia Henry.
Yes.
Perhaps she'd
Madam
like
President,
to
you are there?
an answer.
Yes, I am. I'm certainly there. I just wanted to comment on the last issue relating to seafarers repatriation, and to indicate that there are about 11 countries today, around 11 countries that have, following the UK government's meeting with a number of other industry stakeholders, committed, about 11 countries committed to repatriate seafarers when they arrive in their ports, or at least to take the necessary measures. This has been the biggest challenge that seafarers face, is that of repatriation. So I want to first of all say this is the biggest issue, because unless they can go, and Helen referred to that, unless they can, they not only need to disembark, so at least many countries now allow, these 11 countries allowing them to disembark, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they can continue onward, forward to their various home countries. They have to take, flights, and in different flights, different sort of stopovers to be able to get there. So it's still a huge challenge, and 11 countries, that's just not enough. because seafarers then have to transfer and 2 or 3 or 4 times before they get home. So the challenges for seafarers, that is at the end of the day, the biggest challenge, the fact that the repatriation of seafarers cannot take effect and that not enough countries are coming on board to actually enable that to happen along that route. So this in my view is the most worrying feature right now, and we just need more countries joining that, the 11 ones, to enable that. But of course, you still have to have the flights available where they land.
I will repeat it. He said that when there's a dispute in any port, the seafarers has actually no choice but to be deported back home. They don't have any remedy in a foreign port. So can the ILO take up the legal things for them? Is there any provision?
Well, there's no, the MLC does not cover the issue of seafarers needing legal representation in a foreign port. Clearly, what is required under the convention is that seafarers should not be you cannot. Unless seafarers are being accused of a crime, that relates to an impact on the port in which they arrive. The seafarers, the idea of seafarers being prosecuted in countries, I don't see under what conditions, unless it is with respect to disembarking for transit and transfer from that country to the other. Of course, examples were given a while ago to have to find funds, including of their own, to pay for bribes. But I don't. Let's say they go to a bar, or they've landed their ship having landed in the country. That criminal dimension is not addressed by the MLC. That is a criminal law issue. But of course, what is important is that you've got seafarers' welfare facilities in major ports around the world, and there I know the ITF has been non-governmental, that does as much as the ITF does to provide support to seafarers. So that's why they ought to be members of the ITF. And join the trade unions nationally in their country, including in India. And I see Abdul Ghani here, and probably Abdul Ghani can answer that question a bit more, because he's probably more practical on the ground, as well as I see that we also have
that other nationality people without visa. Embassies are closed world over. So where do the seafarers go? How?
Seafarers' identity documents. That is why, and that's one of the important things that countries around the world that have seafarers have to ensure they do. Seafarers' identity documents, transit and transfer. So sufficiently, because we have 2 ILO conventions, one that effect is given to these measures that have been adopted to address COVID-19, and they depend on, and our seafarers, they depend on the cargo that comes in, that carries all kinds of cargo from all of all forms that are needed by countries. So I wish there was a way to put sanctions on them, but I don't have that power.
Thank you, Dr. Cleopatra. I have a last question for you. Does WMU give scholarship to private shipping companies for higher education? Mr. Goswami, he has asked this question.
And follow everything that's what's happening in the IMO and all the new issues that are coming up, including greenhouse gas emissions and everything else that we all must do. We all must capacitate our institutions. And the young people, they have to take over from us. So we have to capacitate them to deal with the new challenges. Already we didn't anticipate this one, but the new challenges already that we are facing now, and we will certainly be facing in the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cleopatra. Thank you very much for the detailed answers. I will go back to now Professor Dr. Helen Sampsan. Ma'am, first of all, I have various WhatsApp messages, various private the chat, the one-to-one messages. Everybody is very excited with your presentation, video presentation of the animation. There's a huge response to that. And a lot of people have commented, it shows the actual thing. And they have also appreciated the fact that a lot of views of the seafarers were taken. It is not only that the people sitting ashore are giving the views, but the seafarers views the actual problem they go through. So I wanted to mention that. After mentioning this, I have a question for you. We have a question from Captain Halbe and Captain Achyutan, similar kind of a question. They are saying, you have done a survey with the seafarers. What about the survey by the employers in the shipping companies ashore?
Yes, this is a question I'm familiar with. And it's very nice to have it put by Captain Hobby and Captain Adjutant.
And Captain, he has a similar question. He says, can you use some other things for the other methods of, I'm not so good, but his question relates to similar thing.
Yes. Well, the reason that we focus on seafarers is because seafarers' voices are generally not heard. Not necessarily, I don't mean that nobody's listening to them, although that could also be the case. But actually, a seafarer goes to his or her ship. Most seafarers do not talk to high-level HR personnel regularly. And when they do talk to them, they feel under a certain pressure sometimes to present a very positive image of things. You know, they don't necessarily feel free to make any kind of constructive critical comments that might be appropriate. So their perspectives are very often not well understood ashore. Whereas anyone who works in a shore office knows that we're all very familiar with each other's problems quite often. I mean, often shipping offices are open plan, or if they're not open plan, at least we have the opportunity to meet each other over coffee and so on. And you very quickly pick up what the perceptions are amongst your colleagues of things that are not right, perhaps on certain ships at sea. So we take the view that if we want to help the industry to improve, that our best efforts are placed and directed towards illuminating areas where there is not very much known about the situation, or where it's being overlooked, perhaps. Perhaps, you know, somewhere or other, people do know these things, but they're caught up with other issues and they're not really giving it very much attention. Because we feel that in shoreside operations, actually, there's already plenty of opportunity for views to be shared and to be made known and for improvements to be suggested. Now, some people sometimes imagine wrongly that this is a kind of a bias in the research. You know, they think of research as being like the BBC, that everybody's viewpoint has to be taken into account to make it a balanced piece of research. That's a misunderstanding about research. For a balanced, unbiased piece of research, what you have to do is to properly represent the full range of views of the population who you say you are studying. So if I did a biased piece of research on seafarers' perceptions of something, the bias would be because I only went to a particular kind of seafarer or a particular group of seafarers, or I asked seafarers who had complaints to come forward and give them, rather than talking to all seafarers. That would introduce bias into the research. But the research is not flawed or biased because you only choose to focus on one issue or one population. If you want to find out how hospital patients feel about their experiences, you don't have to talk to the nurses as well. You understand? If you want to find out what your customers think about things, you talk to your customers. Of course, there may be issues that explain why the customers get treated in the way that they do, but that's for another research project, perhaps. So I'm well aware that many of the staff ashore in shipping companies operate under huge stress. And I have no doubt whatsoever that impacts negatively sometimes on the seafarers, and that seafarers don't themselves have an understanding of those stresses. But when you're at sea, understanding those stresses really doesn't help you to deal with your onboard situation. And so there's not really a huge value to presenting those stresses to seafarers. They can do nothing about them, but the shoreside operations, understanding the stresses that are on board, they really can take action to change practices. And many have been. They've been reducing the paperwork demands. They have been trying to make sure that ship captains don't get repeatedly asked, and chief engineers, for the same information. They have tried to make staff more aware of, being concise, looking at time zones and so on. So I'm very happy for the question. I hope that you feel that's a full and comprehensive answer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sampsan. I would just request Dr. Cleopatra. I think she would like to make a comment. President?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. What I wanted to say is just to compliment what has been said by Helen, that WMU does have, we of course also did a major research, not just research, a sort of, my staff did a huge number of months at sea with on ships relating to this issue of corruption, which is one of our pandemics as well. And the WMU already more than 4 years ago, we have launched a major maritime business integrity and corruption awareness seminar that we deliver every year to all our students. It's a program that they must all join. And of course, we also deliver that to individual companies and institutions in the maritime field. So that, in complementing the research work that has been done by, or in addition to the good work that has already been done by CERC in this regard, we have following our own study on board ship of corruption and in ports, of course, both on ship and in ports, of course. But our staff our faculty members who were sailed as well for a number of months on board ships, and in cooperation with a lot of industry players, particularly from Denmark. We then elaborated this very important seminar that we deliver each year to all our students, and of course we also do seminars on this issue for industry.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I have to stop our question answer session here. Thanks to all. I will just make a comment which I picked up from the chat. Captain Vidut Banerjee wrote, "Seafarers need to feel pride in their profession, so it gives them courage to take up the issues." Very well said, Captain Banerjee. And I think all of us now on the webinar will appreciate his saying this, and I hope this motivates everyone. Thank you. I would like to invite our Deputy Master, Captain Kaustubh Pradhan. I really appreciate he's the person behind the scene, looking after everything, making the program, and stays behind the scene. But his contributions are immense in all the webinars that the Company of Masterminders attend. Captain Kaustubh Pradhan, he will come and give us the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Captain Basin. Dr. Malini Shankar, Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University. Dr. Cleopatra, President, World Maritime University. Dr. Helen, Director of the Seafarers Research Institute, Research Center, UK. Our respected Master, Captain B.K. Jha, CMMI office bearers, wardens, members of the shipping fraternity, and all the participants. On behalf of the Company of Master Mariners of India, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Dr. Malini Shankar and Dr. Cleopatra, who took out their valuable time from their busy schedule to inaugurate and address this seminar, or rather webinar, and share their thoughts to set the webinar rolling. And Dr. Cleopatra, I can assure you, with Dr. Malini Shankar, who has recently taken over the reins of the Indian Maritime University, there's going to be a lot of interaction with the World Maritime University. You can rest be assured. I would compliment Professor Dr. Helen Sampsan for the excellent presentation. The video clips which you have shown are absolutely to the point, and they have really hit the nail on the head. Stress on seafarers is indeed a very serious subject. And you're right about the master going through commercial pressures, personal demands, technical commitments. There is no end to it. Thank you, Professor Dr. Helen Sampsan. I would also like to thank Dr. Captain Suresh Bharadwaj, who conducted the session so beautifully. Your introduction and your I would say the way you have assisted Dr. Helen in conducting this event was excellent. Thank you, Captain Bharadwaj. I would extend my special thanks to HIMT Chairman Mr. Sanjeev Vakil, who has offered this platform to us not once but number of times. His son Kirtan Vakil, who has been coordinating with us on technical matters. His support, Captain Anand Subramaniam, as well as moderators and his team, who has made this seminar possible. There's a lot of hard work going behind the scene. If you see, spotlighting somebody and, putting the focus on somebody else. So during the talk, that's thanks to the technical team. I would also like to thank the media who have been extensively covering this event, including all other CMMI events. Now that includes Marix, CJob, then we have Bhandarkar Publications, we have Sailor Today, who's live streaming this event, Sagar Sandesh, the Maritime Destination, and no program can become successful with a single person or just a couple of persons. So I extend my big thanks, first of all, to our master, Captain BK Jha, with whose insight and support this event is being conducted. Captain Basin, who is our Secretary General, who conducted the question answer session very well handled. Captain Shashi Kumar, the one person in the background who's in the office, our CEO, and his team in the office who have put this webinar together. And last but not the least, I should thank all the participants. If you are not here, there would be no seminar. Thank you very much. Thanks all. Now, as you can see, we have a poll here. I would request Captain Basin to summarize the poll.
Thank you, Captain Pradhan. Also, thank you, Kirtan, for putting in dot on. We had two questions, polling questions. How was the CMMI webinar on the subject Understanding Seafarers Stress from Empirical Research Finding? We have about 59% excellent, 36% great, and 6% needs improvement. So very well established. Then we have a next question. Do you want to be a member of CMI or master? 13% have said yes, and 63% says already a member. But then there are 24% not sure of eligibility. So we will request this thing, please visit our website. Maybe we can show the thing, our website, CMI, Company of Masterminders website. Yeah, here it is. Visit the website and you will get all the instructions. You have the email IDs there. You have the phone number there. Phone number due to COVID are not operational unless you have the mobile number. But please visit. We look forward for the people to become a member. And we are already we have already opened a chapter in Dubai, and there are international chapters, Singapore and UK. We are already working on it now. I would also like to announce that. Thank you. Captain Pradhan, back to you. You have to